So really, I think the big takeaway when it comes to on-page SEO is that it all comes down to what Google can see, right? So here's a blog post. This is a post we're going to go through today and kind of dissect and optimize. Google sees this. They see lots of code, lines of code, text, different meta descriptions, different links, different images. They don't see the website like we see it visually. And so when it comes to search engine optimization, you need to make sure that your website is able to be crawled by these search engine robots, or crawlers, they call them. Because they'll go through, they'll scan your website, they'll scan the page, and they'll see this code just like you're seeing here. And most people on this webinar are probably not programmers. So thankfully, there's content management systems out there like WordPress, Drupal. I use Ghost for my personal website too. Tons of different content management systems that allow you to visually edit things. Here's an example of WordPress here. So you don't need to worry about all of that programming gobbledygook in the back end. But it's important to be aware of that at least in the back end of things, that's how Google sees the website. So when it comes to search engine optimization and on-page optimization, a lot of that comes down to making sure that your content is formatted correctly and has the correct markers on it so that Google can understand what's on that page and what the priority is for that page too, in terms of keyword and content goes. So that's kind of the quick background on why this stuff is important. So what I'll do now is just kind of walk through this page and show you how I would optimize it as a person trying to do search engine optimization. So again, here's the finished project or product. It's on my website right now. You can see it. But we're going to kind of go back to the beginning. So if I was to write this website or web page from scratch, this is what it would look like. So you can see here text. I have a couple images I used throughout the post. And then a couple links. So we're going to go through all the different factors, starting from the most important and kind of working our way backwards when it comes to on-page optimization. So number one thing to start with is that each page on your website should have at least 300 words. If it doesn't have 300 words, you could be penalized in Google's eyes for having what's called skim content or thin content. So probably a good way to look at that is that about one page of written text is 300 words. So if you're doing a blog post or you have a product page or a service page, try and have at least 300 words in there. That's going to help a lot just from the get-go. So this post in particular, we have 300 words ready to go. The keyword I'm going to optimize for in this case is exponential sales. Because whole entire post is all about how you can move from a linear sales growth to exponential sales growth. It's a great post if you have time to read it. Check it out. But that's what I'm going to optimize for, is exponential sales. It's important to know what keywords you want to optimize for before you get started so that you can make sure you're focusing that in your content, in your headers, in your links, all of that stuff going forward too. So that's number one thing, is just making sure that you have a good idea what your keyword is. So again, I'm going to use exponential sales as my example here. I'm using WordPress because that's the most popular content management system. So that's the example I'm giving here, is using WordPress. If you have WordPress, I highly recommend you install a plugin called Yoast. It's an SEO tool. And if you use it at the bottom of your post, once you install it, you have this nice little SEO toolbar you can use to further optimize, as well as kind of coach you on some of the things I'm going to go through today too. One of the things they allow you to do is have what's called a focus key phrase. So you can plug that in there. So I'm just going to type in exponential sales. I spell it right? Yes, exponential sales. That allows you to then check yourself and grade yourself. It doesn't actually affect SEO, but it allows you to check and see how well you've optimized this page for that focus keyword you put in there. So I'm going to start by doing that just to kind of acknowledge the fact that, yes, that is what I'm going to go for. That is my keyword I'm going to use. So the very first thing, as far as actual content optimization goes, that's important to Google is your title. So up here, you can see I call this one the exponential salesperson. In the eyes of Google, this is called an H1. If your website is set up correctly, it's a heading 1. Every page on your website should have an H1 or a title, and there should only be one. So in this case, I have it right here as the exponential salesperson. That's my H1. If we go into the code here, we can go through and we can find H1 somewhere. just like this. Exponential. So right here, you could do title. So that's the title of it. And then lower down, we'll see it under H1. The headline is exponential salesperson. So you can see here, it kind of pops up multiple spots. In Google's eyes, the H1 is the most important, and then H2s, and then H3s, and then body text, and then it looks at different formatting factors too. So I know I'm getting kind of technical with some of these things, but I guess the most important thing for you to think about is when you're in your content management system, your title will appear as your H1, and that has a lot of SEO value. So you want to make sure you use some of your keywords in that. All right, so kind of going down the list, let's now look at H2s. So H2s are your headings or your subheadings within your text. And this is another great spot to focus your search engine optimization because, again, it has more weight, it carries more importance in the search algorithm than normal body text does. So in this case, I have a couple spots where I have opportunities to add subheadings. So one spot here is digital sales enabling exponential growth. I kind of use that as a heading spot to break up different parts of this blog post. So what you can do then is highlight it and then change it from a paragraph text to a heading text. And then you'll see here, again, this is just in WordPress, but whatever content management system you use probably has something like it. When you change it to a heading, you can change it to different types of headings. So right now we have H2. You could change it to H3, H4. Again, you don't want to do H1 because your title should be H1 if your website's set up correctly. But H2 is probably what you want to use for more of those more prominent subheadings throughout your post or throughout your page. So we'll make that an H2. And then down lower on the page, I have another spot. So I talk about, how sales can be done exponentially through leveraging digital platforms. And then later down the blog post, I talk about actual sales activities or activities you can do that lead to exponential growth. So again, this is another great spot. I'll change it from a paragraph to a heading. We'll make it an H2. And you can see that I used keywords in there in that heading that I'm trying to target, right? So exponential sales. And up here, exponential growth, digital sales. And I should kind of pause for a second here too. Google and other search algorithms like Bing are aware of relevant keywords. So if you're talking about the first president of the United States, you're talking about George Washington, you're talking about United States, you're talking about executive branch, all of those keywords kind of blend together in Google's eyes and they see the relevancy between them. So you don't have to have your keyword all the time used exactly, perfectly the same. So exponential growth, exponential sales, digital sales in different orders, things like that too. It's okay to do that throughout your post. Don't kind of fret about making sure it's perfect. You can have some relevancy around that too. So again, those are H2s. So you can see there I have two H2s and one H1 at the top. So now I have some good headings with some keywords focused in them, and Google's going to see that. So going a step further, if you have subheadings, we can do H3s. So I have a couple opportunities here. So under the digital sales enabling exponential growth, I talk about how digital channels are really good for exponential growth. And I give two different examples. So one is ability to scale. So again, we're going to go here. We're going to change it to a heading. In this case, we're going to make it H3 because it's a subheading of that discussion on digital sales leading to exponential growth. So we're going to make that an H3. And then right here to network effects is the other thing I talk about. We're also going to make that a heading and make that an H3 as well too. I would say maybe half the posts that I do don't have H3s. It just isn't something that I prioritize, but I always make sure to have the H1, that's a title, and I always make sure to have H2 as my post, just because there's so much SEO value behind those two. So those are headings. Hopefully it's pretty straightforward. Again, based on your content management system, it'll probably be set up differently, but it should have some sort of option like that too. So now let's talk about formatting. And formatting is something that's really important for SEO because Google sees formatting as a way to look at different types of text and a way to call out certain types of text. But I think more importantly, just from a user experience standpoint, if your web page is not formatted, it's going to be hard to read. So it's a good practice in general to make sure you have good formatting. Headers matter too, obviously, is a good way of doing that. But other things that can work too are things like bolded lists. And again, Google will see that in the code. They will see a bolded list. And they'll render it differently and they'll index it differently in their search algorithm too. So in this case, in this blog post, Lots of text, lots of things going on. Down here, though, I talk about a few of those different sales activities that can lead to exponential growth. So right now, I just have them broken out as paragraphs, and I have the first kind of what they are bolded. But to make it even easier for people to view them and to make it, again, called out for Google's sake, we're going to add that as a bolded list. So again, in WordPress here, we're going to click on the paragraph icon, we're going to hit list, and it'll automatically make it into a list. So I just recommend that you look at when you're doing content, if you have a bolded list or number lists or any other kind of formatting you can do that just makes the text a little bit easier to read, that's a good thing to do. And again, you can do columns, you can do quotes, all these different things that just help signal to Google that this text is a little bit different than normal body text. And you'll see this actually play out, and this is getting kind of in the weeds of search engine optimization. But if you do a search in Google, you might see what's called a featured snippet or rich snippet at the top of the search results. So if you search like, top reasons to visit Florida, not right now because of the hurricane, but you might see like the bolded list appear in the search results page. And that's actually a featured snippet that came across from a web page that had a list function into it. And the Google actually pulled that forward and then used that as part of the search results page too. So kind of getting the weeds there. But I just want to call out the fact that it does make a difference beyond just having it visually format well for your users too. So another big part of SEO, and this goes back to like the fundamentals of ranking and search, is links. Because Google sees the world through links. The way they got to this page, the way they're going to get to your website is through links. They're going to find that you link to your website from some other website, or some other website links to you, and then now you link off to other websites. All of these things tell Google what kind of authority pages have, and that's how they crawl the internet, is following links. So every single page you have should have links on it, without pretty much any exception. I'd be hard pressed to find a time you shouldn't have a link on a page. And the more relevant the link, the better. So there's two different types of links. There's internal links. Those are links from your website to your website for a different page. And there's external links. So from your website to an external website. So in this case, in this post here, I have a couple different links I used already. So for instance, here I talk about exponential sales activities, and I talk about my digital selling strategy that I recommend in a different blog post. So in this case, this is an internal link. You'll see here, it's my website, jroloff.com/digital selling. I have another spot here where I talk about social selling. In that case, I link out to my course I have on mastering social selling. So again, this is kind of another internal link. But it's good to have an external link too. So in this case, one of the things I talk about is network effects. So what I did is I found a Wikipedia article on network effects. We can go to it quick here. But it's all about network effects. You can see, good informational post. Try not to be, forcing an external link that doesn't make sense for your post. You don't want to kind of have like spammy links in there or things that don't make sense that you're confusing your users. In this case, I'm talking about network effect, and it probably is helpful to have a link out to the Wikipedia page talking about the benefits of network effect. So what I'm gonna do here then is I'll go in and I will make this right here, link out to network effects, add that. So now I have an external link on my page too. So now in this post, I have two internal links and one external link. That's pretty good. That's going to get me pretty far as just making sure that Google recognizes that I'm linking out, I'm providing value, and I'm using the benefits of the internet and building links that way too. So we have links, we have headings, we have lists. Now let's talk about images. Google and nearly every other platform nowadays is starting to really put priority on media. And you see it with social media websites, with video and images too. But since the dawn of time with Google here, they've cared about images on your webpage. So in this case, I have two images I used. One is a exponential graph, kind of talking about the way the growth happens from sales activity from a digital perspective, and one's a linear graph, talking about more of that linear growth that comes with more traditional sales models. So I already included these. Again, in your content management system you use for your website, you can probably find something that works too. But in this case, what you want to do beyond just adding the image is making sure you add what's called image alt text. And this is text that's used by screen readers. So if someone has some sort of visual disability and they're unable to see the image, this alt text describes image for that person. But also, as you could imagine, Google's servers and search robots also can't see images, right? They have different AI. They're trying to figure that stuff out too. But by providing alt text, you're also describing to these search engine robots what that image is all about too. So in this case, I'm just going to add some really simple alt text here. So I'm in WordPress. I'm opening the sidebar here by hitting the settings button. Once you click on an image, you get the option to edit those image settings. And one of them being alt text. So in this case, I'll say linear sales growth graph. And then I'm going to go down here, this one, and say exponential sales growth. So really simple, just something to kind of put in there that describes it. Again, going back to the search engine optimization side of things, you can see here this image has the word exponential sales in it, right? And if you go back to the beginning, that was what we were targeting. We're talking all about having the word exponential sales, or having that be the key phrase we're trying to optimize for. So in this case, using that alt text spot on the image on the page was a great way to optimize that. So again, just another thing to kind of think about. So now that we've got all that done, we've really optimized all of the content on the page. And this is, really a good start as far as making sure that it's readable by our users, it's readable by Google, and that all of our keyword opportunities in the headings, in the titles, and the lists are all taken care of. One thing I haven't talked about yet is just body text optimization. And that kind of goes back to writing the initial page itself. So, H1, H2, H3 lists, all those things have importance for SEO. But your body text obviously matters too. So throughout my body text, you'll see I use the word exponential. I talk about digital sales. I talk about marketing activities. So throughout the body text, I'm using the keyword. I'm optimizing for it, but not from an inauthentic place. I really am trying to have a good, valuable post for my users, but just making sure I'm using keywords in there too, which all of that goes back to just picking the right topic you're trying to write about, right? So I'm trying to write about exponential growth. So it's not like I'm trying to jam some keywords into a post that has nothing to do, content perspective, with what I'm trying to optimize for. The page is written for that topic, and the keywords are optimized for that topic too. So it's very, very easy to do that if you're, writing intentionally and not trying to jam something in a spot where it shouldn't be too. So that's all of the content on page stuff. The other component that gets people kind of tripped up sometimes too is meta titles and meta descriptions. And this is what shows up in Google. Again, I'm using Yoast as a way to edit this, and most content management systems should have spots to this too. But this is what shows up in Google when you see yourself on the search results page. So Yoast allows you to edit this directly on here. And so you can see here, there's meta title. Automatically, Yoast is going to grab the page title and the site name. I'm using my Simple Living blog as kind of the example here. So that's why it says that. Normally it'd say James Roloff Consultant, but you can see here automatically grabbed the exponential salesperson as a title for the meta title, which is fine. I'm probably going to leave that. But there might be cases on your pages or on your blog posts or somewhere else on your website where you want to change that title. And if that's the case, if you're using Yoast, you can just delete that here. Oh, sorry, my cat's playing with the thing over here. So there might be spots where you want to change that and make it something different. So if that's the case, you can go in and you can change that manually in Yoast. Meta description is what shows up as a kind of that gray text on the search results page. And what I recommend there, because title is pretty straightforward, you're just kind of describing what the page, or kind of saying what the page is. For meta description, my recommendation is kind of make it that call to action. Why should someone click on that link? What information are you going to provide on that page? And what can they expect once they get to it? So in this case, the meta description I had here, pull it over. I did traditional sales techniques, produce linear results, want more sales, you must do more work. Digital selling enables exponential sales growth. So if someone searched exponential sales, they're going to see that this post is all about moving from traditional sales to more digital sales. Some other things that help a lot with using Yoast too is there is a character limit that once you go beyond too many characters, Google won't even read it any further. They only have a limited amount of characters. Same thing goes for title too. So you can see here, Yoast kind of gives me an indicator that I'm staying within those limits. If I type in some more, it'll turn orange. So you can see anything beyond that no longer works. So that's why it's super nice to use tools like Yoast, or again, whatever content management system you use. There's probably something built in there where it can kind of check against you and make sure that you are optimizing correctly and you have the right amount of characters in there too. So that's really all it goes into on-page optimization. To kind of recap it, a lot of it comes back to making sure your content is formatted correctly, making sure you have keywords in the most important spots on your web page, and then finally cleaning up some of that meta titles, meta descriptions, and alt text just to make sure that Google search engine robots can correctly crawl your website too. So that's kind of what I had. And then push it live. Here's the final result. So you can see here, H2, H3s. We have our images with alt text. It's behind the scenes. You can't see that. You can see there's links in here and you can see bolded lists. It's very easy to read. It's very clean. It's visually good for your user. And again, it's optimized for search engine optimization too.